So we have now up next a panel discussion that's focused on visual search. I would like to invite Sameer Shah, Senior Director of Machine Learning at Flipkart, to moderate this session for us today. Let me take a quick moment and introduce Sameer. Sameer leads the teams responsible for the entire shopping funnel that includes catalog, advertising, and all the product discovery methods, including search, merchandising, and recommendations, etc. He also leads development of user insights and computer vision platforms. And as part of this role, he's driving various critical programs like improving the query understanding system, personalized search experiences, building a semantic knowledge graph, and visual search. I think if we are ready, Sameer, we'll get you on screen. In the meantime, for the audience members, please feel free to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions you might have. And we'll have Sameer and the panel take it up towards the end of this segment. There you are on screen already. Screen is all yours.
Thank you so much, Ambiva, for the introduction. I want to first thank the audience for investing their time with us today for the visual search panel discussion. It is my honor and pleasure to be the moderator of this session. We have an amazing panel here, and we will try and make the panel discussion very interesting, very meaningful to you all. We hope that by the time the panel discussion is done, you'll have something to take away from this discussion, whether it's better understanding of how visual search works, or a fresh perspective on challenges and opportunities, maybe a better strategy for adoption and success. So here's the format we will follow today. We'll first introduce the panel and then let them make the opening statements. We'll then kick off the conversations on some themes like visual search adoption, understanding user needs, tech implementation details, fairness, followed by what's up and new coming. I would request you all to keep posting your questions, like Ambika said, on the Q&A section, and our panelists will try to address the questions towards the end of the panel discussion. All right, let's get started with the panel introductions. I'll start with Arun Sacheti. Arun is the Vice President at Microsoft, leading multimedia search for Bing, which includes the global product and engineering teams for image, video, and visual search. A 23-year veteran at Microsoft, he is responsible for driving innovations in Bing for media-rich experiences, a key differentiator and growth driver. Over the years, his team has built core computer vision technology with real-world applications, including one of the largest vision and vision language embedding models, object detection models, and entity recognition models that work at scale and also support real-time user experiences. Welcome, Arun, and thanks for being with us today on the panel.
Thank you.
The next panelist is Sachin Padwal. Sachin is a director at Google Cloud and an accomplished senior executive with demonstrated success in leading the digital transformation journey to the best-in-class omnichannel retail. His broad areas of expertise include leading product management teams across operations, merchandising, e-commerce, supply chain management, and omnichannel customer experience. Throughout his executive career, Sachin has held leadership positions at several entities like Sam's Club e-commerce, Walmart Global Customer Insights and Analytics, Walmart Corporate Strategy. An industry visionary, Sachin has a strong track record of creating new digital opportunities and successfully managing the digital transformation from brick and mortar to omnichannel retail. Welcome, Sachin, and again, thanks for being with us today on the panel.
Thanks, Samir. Look forward to the conversation.
Same here, Sachin. All right, last but not the least, we have Deepak Agarwal as the third panelist. Deepak is currently the head of core engineering at Pinterest, where he leads the teams responsible for developing all organic user experiences on the platform, including recommendations, search, and shopping. Prior to Pinterest, Deepak was the VP of engineering and head of artificial intelligence at LinkedIn from 2012 to 2020. He began his industrial research career with AT&T Labs and subsequently was a researcher at Yahoo Research. Deepak has published extensively in top-tier conferences and journals in computer science, machine learning, and statistics, and has also written a book on recommender systems. He is a fellow of the American Statistical Association, served as a member of executive committee of SIG KDD, was a program co-chair of SIG KDD and World Wide Web conferences in the past, and regularly serves on the program committees of major computer science and machine learning conferences. Welcome to you, Deepak.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Again, I thank everyone for being on this panel. I'm really looking forward to very interesting and engaging conversations today with all of you. as you all know, this discussion, we were going to start with the opening statements from all three, Sachin, Arun, and Deepak. So, Arun, would you want to share your experience with us on how Bing has launched visual search, and what has the journey been thus far?
Thanks, Samir. Thanks everyone at Flipkart for inviting me to this esteemed panel, and thanks for sharing the stage with Sachin and Deepak as a panelist. I think visual search and more broadly image and like media-rich experiences has been like core part of search experiences from day one. What has happened in last 5-6 years is the AI and ML models and like pervasive reach of mobile phone. Visual search itself has kind of taken foothold and become more and more mainstream in not just like search products like Google and Bing and other products, but it's also kind of reaching out to like Flipkart and other commerce and other niche, what you call the experiences or use cases. Like we started like 5-6 years ago, and since then we are seeing like double-digit growth in this area, both in terms of media as an input as well as how we see rich experiences, and we see this continued growth as AI and technology matures, and we are pretty excited about it. What is even more exciting is that in like especially this year, the generative world is also exploding. If you see what experience like DALI or what we had just announced last week, and over time, we see these three things converging where web gets more visual and multimodality as input, which is image and text, as well as generative content. They all will converge and supplement each other to build very rich experiences. And it can't be more exciting times than what we are right now. So it's pretty like, we think that visual search itself will start, like is already solving some of the niche use cases where text or voice are not unable to reach, but the combinatorial thing that will help is even be more far-reaching.
Thank you so much, Arun. Looking forward to, I have a few questions, on exactly what you said, the convergence of, how visual search works, what, multimodal inputs, as well as generative content. So I think very engaging. We'll see, discuss more on this during the panel discussion.
Sure,
Sachin, would you like to take us through how Google has gone about visual search since the launch and what it is up to now?
Sure. A little bit about the Google Cloud organization that I'm in, which is Cloud AI. And then the mandate for the group was, how do you bring the best of the Google, whether it's the Google search, the YouTube recommendations, the Google Lens, to retailers all around the world, right? When you think about the retail environment, what's really happening here is retailers have a lot of technologies, they're kind of siloed, and the mandate was figure out how do you build intelligence on top of the execution systems that retailers have. One of the use cases, as we talked with a lot of the users, were around discovery of products, right? Either through textual search or recommendation and visual search. And that's how we got into this market of how do we provide a more personalized discovery experience for all the consumers who shop on different retail websites. So as part of that, we offer visual search, and it's been an exciting journey where we started visual search almost kind of like with the angle of starting selling search. It has taken different shape, different use cases beyond where we had initially launched, thinking the market was, it's continuously evolving. We'll talk a little bit about multimodal search and what's happening in that world and how all vision, audio, text, everything is coming together as we think about the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sachin. Again, like I said, we'll discuss more on this during the panel. Deepak, we can see that the journey of both Microsoft and Google has been similar, considering the use cases they are trying to solve have an overlap. Would you like to tell us how Pinterest has gone about visual search, since its launch?
Sure. So first of all, it's important to know that Pinterest, when it was launched in 2010, the entire thesis of the product was visual search and discovery. That's exactly what Pinterest is all about. Images existed before Pinterest on the internet. What Pinterest did was it created a system where images can be curated at scale by a community of users. And that curated content was then discovered and searched for by the entire community. And Pinterest has innovated in this area since 2010. It is perhaps one of the best engines out there in the world that provides inspiration, the top of the funnel, as we call it. Our next few-year journey is how to expedite the journey from inspiration to realization, which is what you can think of it as transitioning from the top of the funnel to the mid funnel. So for instance, I'm looking at my home decor and I get inspired by something. How do I help the pinner realize that aspiration by moving to the planning phase and then to the shopping phase as quickly as possible? That's really what we are working on. But visual is in our DNA, and we have done it since the inception of the company. We have done a lot of work with images, and right now we are also working a lot on video, which is going to be the next frontier as far as visual is concerned.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deepak, for that. Like I said, I think we'll start the discussions with adoption. And I'm going to come to you very soon with a question on exactly what you said. So without further ado, basically, I'll set the background. Flipkart also recently launched visual search. While if you compare with the text modality, right, the adoption percentages are still in single digits. Text has been there for long, more than a few decades, right? And users actually have been used to using text as a modality in search. But we have seen very interesting trends. What we call tier 2, tier 3 cities and towns in India, which are smaller cities and smaller towns, we have seen a significantly large adoption of visual search. Just a few years back, if you rewind ourselves, right, we couldn't have expected this. This primarily because the smartphone penetration in the markets was very poor. Users didn't know how to use smartphones in the tier 3, 4 cities. That has changed. Now you go to smaller towns and cities, everyone you will see actually using, lots of different apps, social media apps. So that is a interesting trend we have seen. Secondly, we have also seen the female adoption of visual search has been more than the male adoption. And, that is something, again, we have not seen in the text world. So with that in mind, Sachin, I would like to ask you a question on, this particular topic, especially considering Google doesn't only have, the image as a modality for search in its vanilla search, but you also have a e-commerce offering for visual search. And we would like to know, since inception, right, when you launched visual search, how has the adoption patterns changed? Did you see uptick in the adoption percentages as you went along? Followed by, I just have one more question on that. What user needs does visual search actually address? And what are still the challenges to be solved?
Sure. Sorry, it took me a while to get out of the mute button. After 2 or 3 years of pandemic, you would hope that you could do it in a second, but it just takes some time. It's been an interesting journey actually for us. When we started with the visual search, the thought was, why do people need that? First is like, hey, people know what they want, but they just can't describe it in multiple words, or it's too verbose and I don't know how to describe it. Or the second use case is, I don't know what I want until I actually see it and I get inspired by it, right? And that's how we started on our journey. And that's how the use cases were designed around those particular implementations of visual search. You can upload a picture and we'll get you back the closest matching products, because we thought that's what customers wanted and they wanted to have a look at it, the style. Then maybe the second category was around like what we started seeing retailers use is around as an inspiration point, start showing my current trends of things that are happening. And we were seeing most of this adoption from kind of the fashion industry, right? The apparel and all of those folks who are actually saying like, okay, I want to show the latest fashion, and it's an inspiration, almost kind of a Pinterest experience where you kind of go through that browsing and then you kind of decide where you want to purchase. But when we were talking with retailers, one of the things was there was still a couple of challenges with the adoption of the whole thing. First was, as you mentioned, while the market looks big, the adoption by customer is still in single digits. This customers are still getting used to it. The second is the attribution, right? The challenges from retailers to attribute how much of increased revenue is visual search versus textual search, and how do you kind of attribute each of the channels for different things. But one place where we have seen success for visual search is kind of on the associate side or the employee side. And what we have seen is visual search is really being used to remove the friction from the workflows, right? If you have a scan and go and you need to scan barcodes, instead of that, people would rather look at the picture and figure out what that product was. Second is, I can give an example of Cartier watches. So they use it for their employees and they use Google search. And their use case was like, somebody comes to a Cartier shop and tells me something is wrong with my watch. The employees had to open up a big catalog and look through it and find out which watch was it, right? So they were trying to train it. Now they just take a picture and they know exactly which watch, which year, and all the specs about that watch. And that has reduced their time. So anywhere where vision is part of the workflow, we have seen like huge adoption, and it just becomes natural part. We have seen a usage of vision for enriching our catalog data as an additional way of like understanding product attributes. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but I think that's how we have discovered different use cases for vision kind of beyond the intended purpose when we started.
Got it. Thank you, Sejin. On that note, Deepak, I read some interesting stats on the web. Of course, this may not be most up to date. You can correct me there if I'm mistaken, but I see like 80% of Pinterest users start with visual search when shopping at Pinterest. 55% of the customers say visual search is instrumental in developing their style and taste. These are astonishing numbers. Something which we really hope we will be able to get at some day. But something which, like I said, right, in most of the e-commerce apps, you would not see it. So do you think this happens because users use apps like Pinterest when their intent is not well formed? Like I think you already mentioned earlier, right? So they come there, they don't know what they want. They want to form their ideas, their opinions while they're browsing. Whereas when they come to an e-commerce app, they exactly know what they want. They know how to describe what they want, and hence they end up using a text search. So in the same vein, would you also, I remember you mentioned, right? How do you take a user from inspiration to realization? Can you tell us about how do you, seek to achieve that?
Yeah, so as you rightly pointed out, when it comes to inspiration, top of the funnel, Pinterest is the go-to place for users, right? That's where they come and form their ideas. You may have some vague ideas. Okay, I want to buy a sari which looks like this, and that's all fall fashion, Diwali fashion. You come, you type in a query, and we let you go through the inspiration journey, and you form all these ideas. And then once you have an idea of what you want to do, you go and maybe go to Google and do text search and find it out. What we are doing now, which we have done in the last 2 years, is shopping is a predominant behavior that we have inculcated on our platform. Shopping is the clearest manifestation of realization in some ways. And we ingest catalog from various merchants, and we understand where the user is in their journey, right? If you're in inspiration, we don't come in your way and start showing you products after product because we know you're still in your inspiration journey. But when you are done with your inspiration and you're in the consideration phase and deliberation phase, that's when we try to help you narrow down on your choices so that you can go and finish your journey and buy the product they're interested in. Of course, when you go to the mid funnel and lower funnel, visual is not the only consideration. You also need to know the dimension of the sofa you are buying. You need to know the height. You need to know whether it will fit well in your room. And that's where we have technologies like virtual try-on, right? So you can actually use the virtual try-on technology to see how this sofa is going to live in your room with the dimensions that you have. Similarly, for beauty, you can see how the lipstick is going to look on your face, and all of that stuff is part of the visual discovery that we are building to expedite the journey from inspiration to realization so that the users can fulfill all of that in one place.
Thank you, Deepak. On understanding user needs, Arun, I would like to take the discussion forward what we just were having with Deepak. We see that text search is largely a single category search. Users will come and say, I want a red Nike shoe, or I want a purple sari. Right. So typically you will very rarely see them, talking about sari, a purse and earrings in one single text query. But images is altogether very different, right? Most of the images actually come with multiple objects in it. They will be screenshots of various social media apps like Pinterest or Snapchat, Insta, and how do we basically take an image? And then, by the way, one more question on this. Typically, when users come in, they would not keep searching. So they come in, they have one image to search now, which has multiple objects in it. How do you understand the user intent? Are they exploring? Are they actually very close to buying a product? And how do you understand between various different objects, what are they actually trying to buy? So if you can take that question, will really help.
Very interesting question. And that's one of the challenges or one of the ways where the visual search is a lot more complex as compared to the text modality, because user is not specifying the intent very crisply. But I think that's where like building the cohesive experience where we provide those augmentation or assistance to the user to quickly refine their intent comes very critical in play by better object understanding, by better intent formulation, by understanding the context of the image, not just in the current image, but where was this image found elsewhere in the web. And that's why the whole of the understanding the entire web, because images are massively replicated across the web. So us building and understanding a search engine as all these massive crawlers that we have of where all this image is there, and bringing that context and assisting the user by understanding the context is very important. And that's where dealing with scale with AI as well as better understanding of the web context around it is very important. And building that cohesive experience where we can quickly assist the user to quickly communicate their intent and get the best of visual search, but where they can express in the visual form, but then bringing the best of the other modalities together becomes the foundation of how we can close that gap and quickly help user refine the intent. And also I would like just to, for the other question you're asking is, I think we often scope visual search as just like inputting the image in my input box. But I think visual search, the technology we develop, has various other use cases around providing different styles of this product, or define where else, like what are the other objects that will go with it or other dresses that will go with it. And that's all coming as a power of visual search, where users actually may not be inputting the image, but as a part of the exploration journey or inspiration journey, these tools become very important and the core technology become very important.
Awesome. Arun, I have a follow-up question on this. So like we discussed, you said context is important. It is important to know where the image came from the web. We may want to take them through the inspiration exploration journey by showing them products around, what goes well with what we have in the image. But there, a question what I have is, there are multiple objects like we discussed in an image. They're also sometimes correlated, right? There is some kind of, basically, and how do we understand the correlation between the various objects, what we have, and tweak our search results? So, for example, if there is let's say somebody is wearing a top and a skirt, and then there is a particular earring and purse. Now we can take all of these objects independently and search, but then we know that they are all together, right? So how do we use that context?
I think that's why building that intelligence of co-occurrence graph is what we call, like where all these objects co-occur, and also building that understanding in not just in this image, where are the semantically similar objects co-occurring, and using that knowledge in the system is very important to advance the user to the next stage.
Perfect. Thank you. Sachin,
I want to add.
Go ahead.
I want to just add +1 to kind of like was mentioned earlier. I do feel some of it is also part of the user experience design of bringing that intent upfront. We are talking with the grocery retailers on a use case. There are multiple ways to shop, right? I can go to a pantry, take a picture of the pantry of 5 items, and I want to shop all those 5 items because I'm going to run out of those. Or I might take an individual picture of that. So how do we kind of nudge the user and try to understand the intent even before those pictures are taken, right? That becomes an important part, I think, as you think about, and that intent is infused in the query when it's sent down. So part of it also has to go around with the user experience design and how you go about it.
Absolutely. And again, I just want to add one more thing here. So if you look at Pinterest, one superpower that Pinterest has is users are actually collecting things to boards. So in some sense, that clustering that you talked about is already provided by the users. Like you will find users who are planning a birthday party, collecting a bunch of things together because they wanted to plan a birthday party. They will actually label the board as birthday party for my son, right? So we have almost like, I think, the largest curated graph in the world, and mining that graph actually helps us a lot in figuring out these correlations that you talked about. And that pin to board graph that we have is actually powering a lot of our recommendations using graph neural networks and things like that. So human curation at scale combined with all the AI technology can be super powerful. And that's what we're seeing at Pinterest as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deepak. Arun mentioned an important point, right? Incoming images are not on their own. We can actually go and figure out where they came from. So I like to take that point forward, Sachin. As you know, in search world, right, it is very easy for us to form the notion of head, torso, and tail queries. We can have different solutions for such queries. We can basically have different performance elements to them. How do we, let's say if it is a torso tail query, we may want to actually do a better job because we don't know some stuff about it, right? Head queries, we know everything about a head query. We know what the user wants. We know how to serve the results. Tail queries or once only queries are something which users come once in a while and then that query will never come again. So you may want to have a completely different way to address that problem. However, in the image world, every incoming image we have seen has some difference. Even if it is the same screenshot of a same thing on a Pinterest app or a Insta, there will be differences because compression ratios are different. The way the whole snapshot, the screenshot is taken is different. So how do we bake that head, torso, tail, definitions within the image modality?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. Inherently, I think the definition from a textual world is head queries, top selling items, easily identifiable. I can give it back. Tail is, I don't understand the user intent. And when you really look at kind of like the images, some images, you understand the user intent immediately, kind of like it's high quality image, it's one particular image, and you know what the user wants to buy. And in other cases, you might have people are shopping a particular look, right? They're shopping either maybe a Shah Rukh Khan look, or they might be shopping, a pirate look or something, and you don't really know what they are. Do they want a hat? Do they want a trouser or the shirt or whatever it is? And that becomes a sense of long tail because there is still a lot of discovery that needs to happen on what is the user's intent at that point of time. And I think that's how we've been thinking about kind of the head and the tail. And it's around how many clicks does it take from that initial journey to finally narrow down to what you really want, and to understanding that intent of the user becomes important. And some of it is actually, like I said earlier, it could be part of kind of like navigating the users into particular flow. So you understand the intent because they have joined that particular flow. If you're starting on the trending page, it's more about inspirational browse, and it might be more around, complementing the look. I'm not want to shop the look, but I want to complement the look. I want to buy a sofa and I want to complement it with the existing that we have. So that's how we've been thinking about kind of like this head, torso, and tail of the world of visual search.
Thank you, Sachin. Deepak, coming back to, I think you were mentioning something about pin to board graph. I have two questions on them. First of all, we would love to know more on what does that actually mean. Second aspect of it was human, you said, right, there is a human curation angle. And then there is the AI, which basically helps us get the right products. So what role exactly does the human, humans play in that, human curation plays in that thing? If you can give us a little more insight in that, will be helpful.
Sure. So just to recap, the way Pinterest works, you can find any image on the web and you can pin it to Pinterest. When you are pinning it to Pinterest, you are actually saving it to a board that you create. This board is for your own use. It's not something like in other social media that you are kind of communicating with another person. You create that board. Like my Diwali celebration could be a board, and you found an image on the pin, you save it, you save something else. So this is your personal board. So this is what I call curation at scale, right? You as a pinner is collecting a bunch of images around a particular thing that you're trying to do in your life, like Diwali celebration. That's the curation that you're talking about. And the board, each board has a bunch of images, which we are calling pins because you're pinning it. So that's the pin to board graph. Imagine the same pin being pinned to 5 different boards by 5 different users. So it's a directed acyclic graph, if you will. And that's a massive graph with billions of nodes and edges. And that is what we mine to figure out clustering and similarity and other things of these images. And using this information, rich information, you can do wonders when it comes to visual search and discovery and so on and so forth. So curation at scale is all by users. It's not like we are hiring mechanical Turks to kind of give us labels and all of that. It's all done by the user. Users are curating. What I curate is something that you are going to benefit from, right? So I curate this thing. This is something that I used for my Diwali celebration. When you come and search, then I start showing that image to you because it has been created by me, because I liked it. And because I liked it, you are more likely to like it as well. And so this whole network effect is what makes the recommendations and discovery and search really powerful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense, Deepak. Deepak, one just follow-up question. Is it all, I heard that Pinterest is all about, there's no lexical search. It's all deep learning based retrieval. Can you maybe, briefly talk about that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, we did have lexical search, but in the past few years, given all the experiments we have done, most of it is now based on embeddings. Like we have developed internally a lot of visual embeddings, and even for queries, we have developed embeddings. So a large part of our systems is all running on deep learning and embedding based retrieval. Even in our infrastructure, we have HNSW running at scale, very performant. And so the way the tech has evolved, given Pinterest started in 2010 on this problem, obviously you can expect that they would be advanced in this thing. And so that's what we are finding, like using embedding and deep learning and those approaches gives you more bang for the buck than any other approaches that is out there.
Got it. Thank you, Deepak. Sachin, on that note, I see this is as a user, right? When I use Google for image search, I see that they this is my perception that they use image captioning and they do retrieval based on embeddings as well as a text retrieval. Is that if you can, I don't know if you can talk about that, but I will be interested.
Yeah, I think when we think about kind of the different areas, I earlier talked about multimodal search, and we announced our MUM model in the last I/O, which talks about how text and images and everything can work together. Today, we are using them to enrich the catalog itself, right? Like, so if you send us a catalog and you send us images and pictures and product descriptions, we are using the images to reinforce what we learned from the text and vice versa. So if you send a black dress and in the comment section, there is somewhere kind of like date night dress, we associate that image with date night, right? Because that's the text associated with the picture. So next time you send a similar looking picture, we kind of know that it's a date night. So there are a lot of reinforcements that happen between what you hear, what you kind of see in the description, what you see in the image, and that's how we have started kind of supporting and understanding an object completely based on not only the picture, but also the description. And eventually, it gets more exciting as you introduce the world of voice into it. And, you start looking at videos, which has picture, which have audio, but which also have, maybe text description that happens through closed captions and other things.
Awesome.
Samir, if I may just add one more thing. I think I think the whole industry is moving to the embedding based model. What are other things we are seeing is that the models itself are becoming like multimodal in nature. So what we are starting to, as we published the work we are doing in the Turing spaces, we are using the same model today for both text retrieval and image retrieval, where we are mapping the text and image both in the same semantic space and able to retrieve the document. So our text search and visual search are now on the common embedding model, which is the next advancement we are going after.
That is phenomenal progress, right? Because just a few years back, that was unthinkable. We had deeper, we had very large models, but different for text, different for voice, and different for images. It's interesting to know. I think all three of you, your companies are moving in the direction of semantic space where everything converges. So a text search query, as I understand from three of you, can actually lead to the a result which is powered by images at the backend. That is phenomenal. Arun, I just have one more question. We saw that the world was taken over by short format video players. Just in the last couple of years. How do we extend the image search functionality to videos? I mean, do we think leveraging the temporal information? These are all like maybe 30 seconds, 15 seconds, sometimes 10-second videos. do you see leveraging the temporal information actually can enhance and optimize the search results?
I think it's what I think what will happen, what is happening already, right? If you look at the rich experiences, the experience will be heterogeneous in nature. Like you will have text, image, slideshows, and more about building a heterogeneous visual experiences. And over time, like user will forget about modality of the output format and worry about what is this experience meeting my goal or not. And temporal nature is like interesting in the sense of understanding where the sequence of events is. And eventually, I think we will get there in terms of building a common embedding space and also inputting videos in the same semantic space as well. But so far, I think it's more about bringing text, image, and voice into the same semantic space.
Perfect. Thank you, Arun. Deepak, on fairness, on inclusivity in search, right? Can you tell us how the system should typically be developed to ensure that we do justice to different diversities like skin tone, hair pattern, gender? Will be interesting to know your insights.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. This is a very important problem, and again, I'm personally very passionate about this. So, whenever we are doing visual search, it is very easy for biases to creep in. Like depends on the corpus of images that you're training your model on, and if a particular skin color dominates your corpus, then you will start showing those results. And as a user, if you are not of that skin color, for instance, you don't feel like you belong to the platform or the product, and that's not a good experience. So it is absolutely imperative for us to take these dimensions and provide the users with filters and other things so that they can actually change the results based on these filters. Like if you want to change the skin tone, you should be able to do it very easily. If you want to see the same results with a particular hair pattern, you should be able to do that. Body shape is another example. Not everything should look, any dress search should not be only be shown on glamorous, celebrities, right? I mean, we should be able to see those results worn by the common man, who may or may not have the same body shape. So this is extremely important because otherwise visual search looks, it moves far away from the human nature that it should actually portray, so that we all feel like we belong to the product. And so I know there is a lot of work happening now in this space. I mean, we have been doing this work for a long time. So if you look at Pinterest, we have launched skin tone filters, we have launched hair pattern filters, and we are going to be launching a few more things along those lines very soon.
Perfect. I mean, Deepak, I completely agree with you. And fairness cannot be a afterthought. It has to be something which has to be embedded right since you begin. It cannot be like, okay, we have launched something, now let's talk about it, right? So it's right, and I think I agree with you. So
yeah, I would call this dimension more inclusivity. Fairness is a very broad topic. So I mean, when people talk about fairness, it includes everything, and it's sometimes becomes an ill-posed problem, in my opinion. It covers so many things. So I want to narrow down and just call it inclusivity, just to be more specific about it.
Fair enough. Agreed, Deepak. I have one last question, in the session panel today to Deepak. Deepak, we see high quality cameras, being used these days beautifully for visual search, right? So we know how it has enabled us to do visual search at scale and with so much ease. People just take pictures of anything and everything, what they can take off, and it's working really well. But what are your thoughts on, people now, there are cameras coming with 3D depth available on the phones, right? And then there are edge devices like Oculus, there is Google Lens. However, we know that the catalog at the backend has been created for a long time, right? And it doesn't have this information in it. So how do you use this information which is coming in to make the visual search better?
Yeah, so I think, I'll just give the example of what I was talking about. Like you have a catalog of a product and you want to know how that product looks on you or looks on someone else. This is where all the LiDAR and other things you have on the phone can help, right? You can actually create a 3D model of your space, for instance. And once the 3D model is there, you can then start visualizing how a particular thing will look in your home. And in fact, I'll stop going to the shopping mall. I hate shopping malls anyways, but maybe that's just me. But There is no reason for us to be going to a shopping mall and trying like 20 different dresses before we converge on what I should wear. Like, I mean, it should be all built through technology. And this is, I think this is what I'm actually very excited about, like in the future. Like how can we solve all these cases with all the powerful cameras that we are seeing today? In fact, camera is a new surface, in my opinion. Like, if you look at the apps, every app has their own surfaces. There is a home feed, there is a search. What about camera? Camera itself is a new surface that should be used in a very, it can be used in a much more powerful way than what we're using today. So it's very exciting the way this is all moving.
Perfect. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much. Ambika, over to you for if there are audience questions, if you can ask them.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Sameer. Thank you to the entire panel. We'll take the audience questions and come back to you just a moment. So the questions that have come in, the first one we'll go with is from Kareem. And the question is, for some product categories, users are not doing visual search because of the privacy concerns, which is limiting the scope of visual search. What are your thoughts on expanding the scope of search considering Web 3.0 without compromising privacy? One way of leveraging Web 3.0 in the lifestyle category is instead of sending image from the edge device as it is, we send an avatar with the real product draped on it. Kareem is happy to hear if you have any other thoughts on this topic.
Anyone wants to take that?
I think it's also like we can send the avatar. I think as the phones or the devices get more powerful, one avenue we need to go after is build the embedding on the device itself and then communicate with the embedding rather than sending the imagery itself. And that could be like one gateway to break that privacy concern.
I can say one other approach is, again, exactly what Arun was saying, but we have all these new technologies that we are creating, which is like super resolution. So you don't have to portray exactly the same thing. Like you can actually take a more coarse image and then do a super resolution. You can create something more synthetic around that, but it kind of preserves the properties of the original image. All the work that we are doing in this area can also help a lot in this area, in solving some of the issues. But of course, if you want exactly the same image, then it's a very big constraint. And then, but in most applications, I don't think that's a big constraint. Obviously, I'm not aware of all the applications that Kareem might be alluding to.
Ambika?
Sure. Thank you. We'll move to the second question. Is the cost benefit trade-off worth it for smaller companies to build their own visual search when there are larger companies like Google, Microsoft, etc., who offer it as a service? When do they decide, or how do they decide whether to build in-house versus buy?
I can just tell from maybe personal experiences, as a small company, you may want to decide where you want to invest your resources, right? Especially when it comes to kind of training your model for all of the images. Especially I work with a lot of retailers. Retailers are struggling with just getting high quality images with the existing catalog. So when you talk about visual search, you really need next level quality of images. You need to train your models. You need to do a lot of these things. I think they should look at it from that angle and think about what is the ROI for me in the visual search space. As a lot of us have spoken earlier, it's still in its nascency stage, single digit adoption. And if that's the right focus for them, because they are in an industry where maybe 80 to 90% is things are happening through visual search, then they can think about it. But the rest of the folks, I would say about like, let's focus on maybe the core usage of the customers and where you want to focus in, and leverage third-party services. But that's just my personal recommendation coming from the industry.
Just to add to Sachin, is that a lot of these models, the pre-trained model is just like becoming so much powerful that within Microsoft itself, we are focusing on building one pre-trained model that we are using for a lot of use cases. So you might want to leverage one of the cloud providers like Google Cloud, Azure, or AWS for some of the pre-trained models, and then go to after your niche. What is your unique in terms of experience, in terms of fine-tuning your model for yourself? And that will give you a lot of bang for the buck, as Sachin alluded.
Got it. Thank you so much. We have one last question here. In the text world, when we don't have good recall, we do query augmentation, expansion, term drops, etc. How is this done in visual search?
Yeah, so one thing that we do is, again, similarity, right? So there is, you can have a notion of image similarity from various sources, right? It could be visual similarity, it could be graph similarity that I was talking about, it could be some other forms of similarity, right? So that's one obvious way to do augmentation of recall in the visual world. Of course, everything we do in the query world still applies. You can still do query augmentation. Even for visual search, people are asking questions using text. So there is no reason not to do that as well. But that added benefit of, I mean, visual is all spatial. So spatial similarity is much easier than categorical similarity. So that's actually a big advantage of visual, which we should take advantage of in increasing recall.
Ambika,
Sure.
are there any
Thank
other?
you so much. No, I think those were the questions we had. But honestly, thank you so much to our entire panel. It was truly an insightful discussion. I'm sure all of us are walking out of the session feeling smarter than we were when we joined, always learning. Thank you, Samir, for helping us moderate this session and helping the group share their insights with us. And the biggest thank you, of course, to our wonderful panelists for sharing insights from their companies as well. Thank you, audience, for your questions and making this a great two-way conversation. We appreciate all of you taking time to join us today. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.